Hello, I'm Soycat, and welcome back to the second channel geography video. This is a series where we talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today, I'm going to be doing another one of these Google Maps style videos, because the reason I started this series is to prove that there is so much information you can learn about the world just using Google Maps. It's this freely available tool that has so much information granularly available about everywhere. There's many other map tools available, of course, but you can learn so much about the world. And today, I wanted to do precisely that by talking about the United States of America, and in particular, I wanted to talk about one state in the United States that's pretty much known for one thing, because that state is Nevada, or as some people will insist I call it, Nevada, but you can't control what I do, I'm on the internet, wow. So Nevada is a really interesting state because it's mostly known for Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas and Nevada in some ways are almost interchangeable, and if it's not known for Las Vegas, it's known for gambling, right? Everyone knows you go to this state to gamble, and that actually couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, the population of Nevada is 3 million, and of that population, only 2.227 million lives in the Las Vegas metro area, so, oh, actually, that's 75% of the state population, based in one city, by the way. And if you include the second biggest city of Reno, which I don't know why is called the biggest little city in the world, which isn't how any of that works at all, that has about another 425,000, meaning between them, about 90% of the state population lives in these two big tourist gambling towns. If you want to see that on a map, because, you know, you better have to, this is what it actually looks like. As you can see, there are a couple of spots of red in an otherwise sea of green of people living in places of less than one person per square mile. It is ridiculous how unpopulated Nevada is as a state. In fact, Nevada was only added as a state for the 1864 presidential election because Abraham Lincoln wanted to like stack his margin. And yeah, they had a lower population than was required to be a state at the time, but they kind of rushed it through. And yeah, fun fact, did you know Nevada as a state had a ridiculously low population? If you go to the census from 2010, you can see the last 100 years of Nevada's state population, and even as recently as 1900, only 81,000 people lived there. In fact, the only thing that really brought people to the state, as you can see, here's 1900, here's 1910, 20, 30, 40, etc. You can see how in the 30s, something happened that started a huge wave of growth, a wave of growth that still hasn't ended. And in fact, if you look at Nebraska and Nevada, the population difference was over 10 times, even as recently as 1930 right here. But now Nevada actually has almost double the population of Nebraska because a lot of people go there. Why do a lot of people go there? The actual answer is actually gambling. Interestingly enough, like, I always thought it'd be one of those things where it's like, well, there's another story. And they do have a lot of mining, they have a lot of other things, but really it comes down to gambling and tourism. Being the first state to re-legalize casinos was a big deal. In fact, the second gambling city of like Atlantic City wasn't really a big thing until 1978. That means for 58 years, if I did the maths correctly, there was a monopoly for Nevada and casinos, and as you can imagine, that's why Las Vegas gets its reputation as the casino city. But the interesting thing about Nevada is it proves a point about how laws and stuff like that work, because obviously if laws are only as strong as your borders to any place where those laws aren't enforced, and the best way to prove that is by looking at this state right here. So Nevada, the state that is highlighted and looks like this, is a really interesting state if you look at its borders, because they're all pretty arbitrarily defined. I mean, there's literally straight lines, except for right here where it follows the river, the Colorado River, I believe. And you can see how every single one of these state borders, because it borders 5 other states, Arizona, California, Oregon, Idaho, and Utah, every single one of the states that it borders, has a lot of, gambling on their side of it. So, for instance, gambling wasn't legal in any of those 5 states, and still mostly isn't. If we go to the border between Las Vegas and, between Nevada and California, there's a town called Primm. You might know this because Fallout New Vegas, but, this town of Primm, the very last Nevada town, one thing that you'll spot is as you go in and out, wow, what's that? Is there a casino? Whiskey Pete's. You can literally gamble in your way in and out of Nevada, because the moment you're in the state, there's suddenly a big incentive. All the people who live anywhere on that side of the border all have to cross the state border, have to do things in another state to do something that's illegal in theirs. And the crazy thing about this is I thought, like, oh wow, that's a weird example that there's so many people driving. Clearly, you can see LA to Las Vegas, and they must stop in Primm. But if you look at literally any other major settlement, like for instance, let's go between, Nevada and Arizona over here. Like, okay, between Nevada and Arizona, there's a place called, just over here you can see there is Lowlin, Laughlin? You know what, Laughlin, let's call it. And what's that? Oh, it looks like there's casinos on the Nevada side, because again, people are willing to, even if they're not as big as the Vegas ones, I don't imagine. Actually, let's give it a look. This is what the Aquarius Casino Resort looks like. Again, not massive. I mean, it's actually pretty big, I would say. But it's big enough because people are willing to go over to the border, to do so. Basically, again, things are legal there. They're not legal elsewhere. And as a result, at the exact border, at the exact place where it becomes legal, a huge amount of demand builds up. Here is Mesquite, Nevada, for instance, the Eureka Casino and Resort, the Virgin River Hotel and Casino. Let's give both of those a look, because they're next door to each other for some reason. Wow, there are in fact casinos over here in Mesquite, Nevada, at the border, by the way, with Arizona, but a different part of it. Even Utah, which is the very, very, it's a very strict state in a lot of ways. I was told about this by a subscriber who lives in Salt Lake City. When they turned 18 or 21 or whatever the American age is where you can gamble, they went straight to this place. I think it was 21. I was very amused by that. I was like, wow, that's really going light. They're like, we went to Wendover. And again, the Wendover Hotel and Casino is literally right here on the border. Like, the very moment they could start a resort and casino, they did. And they've got a huge amount of demand from over the border. And yeah, if you look over here, you can be like, oh, is there another little town here? Actually, there isn't a town on this particular part of the border. But if you look at pretty much any bordering, two states, here's Jackpot, for instance. The town is literally called Jackpot, by the way. Jackpot Airport as well. There is a town called Jackpot on the north border with Idaho. If we look at the border with Oregon, for instance, there's a place called McDermott, which isn't the best name for a place, but there's a casino called Say When, which actually this must be a really tiny one. This looks like the tiniest town I've ever seen. Yeah, literally, it isn't a town, it's just a road, but somehow this tiny little road still has a casino because the moment people enter, they want to go gamble and get cocktails and a family restaurant, apparently. It's open 24 hours a day. And again, should we just prove this some more? I feel like we have to. My favorite thing about, again, the Google Maps and, Nevada thing is you can look at any one of its borders and any one of its towns, really, and you're going to find a casino somewhere in there because there's this huge demand for it. I mean, if it was, one of many states that had it, it'd be more spread out, but it really is. There's a place here literally called State Line, by the way. I've only spotted that just now, and what do you know? On the other side of the State Line, there is a Harrah's, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the big casino brand in Vegas, literally at the edge of the state, at the state line, in State Line, there is a giant casino where they gamble just over the border. Here's what it looks like on the inside. You ever wanted to see what it's like behind the desk? Why did they take this? What was their logic in possibly thinking this was a good idea to have? Whatever, but the point is that when you have laws that are super strict, you can't enforce laws on other jurisdictions, based on the fact that those people get to make their own laws. And if your people are mobile, as we all agree in the Western world at least is a free thing to do, something that happens with borders on pretty much every single case is that, this happens where little border towns set up. Like, let's go look at BT. Does BT have a casino? Actually, it might not. This might be the smallest one. This might be the largest one without it. Oh no, there's Stagecoach Hotel and Casino. Again, don't imagine it's too big. But what do you know? There's a casino here as well, with a Denny's inside. They've won my heart. They have. Even the tiniest town, because it's in the magical state where it's this magical thing, has casinos, and therefore they get a lot of revenue from the other states. Because in reality, if you look at the if we look at the population again, you can see how the population of Nevada has grown literally in the last 100 years, I guess that is. 100 years, it's gone up more than tenfold. About 40-fold, their population. That population didn't happen because people just decided to have more children, or even because of the immigration from outside the US, which is a big factor there. There's a lot of Latinos, I'm sure, is not news to anyone. But the fact is that the state has grown because people move there from other states. By being a popular state and within a union, within any form of system, by being the one that does the things that people want the best, in this case, people want to gamble, it seems, things go very well. And actually, I just want to find some tiny little town. Crystal Springs. Here is a small town. Actually, wait, because it's in the middle, we might have actually found one without any casinos. It's a fun game of, zoom into a random town and see if it has a casino or not. This one right here, it's got a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but does it have a casino? I think it might not, actually. It's just got the Nevada Club. So, yeah, it's a fun little game to play that you can just be like, oh, yeah, they have the casinos. They've got, a very libertarian mindset, I would say. And, yeah, it's a very interesting thing to look at and to see, yeah, even Boulder City, this place that was basically a little town to set up so they could build a Hoover Dam. Even here, it's like, oh, yeah, at the very end of the railroad when it used to exist, what do you know? There is a Actually, where is the casino? I can't find it right now because they're all shut. But there is a casino right over here. I do assure you, you have to believe me when I say there is a casino in in a Nevada town. And yeah, even though Las Vegas is perhaps the most famous of all of these, the interesting thing about a place being so open to that is it also becomes dependent on it. So even though I love the idea of like, I've got this really controversial opinion, right? That I really I dislike forcing people to do things that they do not want to do. Generally speaking, I'm a big fan of letting, you know, like not stomping people into the ground. I've got this controversial opinion. I mean, on the internet, it actually seems to be quite controversial. Like, why aren't we telling other people what to do more? But anyway, so I have that controversial opinion. But you can kind of see, like, one of the downsides of being so reliant on, like, hey, we're lax and open to everything, and, you know, making so much money in a sector that is very much optional. Like, casinos are an optional thing. For some people, you're addicted and it's not optional. But the ideal of casinos is that, you know, like, people go there because they want to go there. By the way, this is the biggest little town in America. Does it feel like a little town? I don't, this doesn't feel like a little town to me. This Harris over here next to this very, very tacky casino. Like, is that tacky? Or, you know, whatever. But, my point that I'm actually trying to make very badly and very slowly is that when you become very reliant on revenue from outside your own jurisdiction, when that starts to fall, problems start to begin. And that's why you know, everyone gets very controversial, like casinos are ready to open their doors again because they, you know, they want tourists back in the city. The reality, or back in the state, the reality is when you have a state built on one industry, that industry is very important. Even when nationally you wouldn't make the decision to, say, open casinos, the decisions of the 3 million people who live in Nevada versus the decision of the people who don't. It's an interesting thing of like, you are, you know, by giving them the freedom to decide for themselves, they might decide in a course of action that kills, say, 10,000 more people than necessary. But if they decide to do that, is that an okay thing? It's this endless debate of like, people are all for do what the people want, give people the sovereignty until they use it in a way that people don't actually like. It's kind of like, I don't know, like everyone should have states' rights. You know, there is a side of the debate that's like states' rights. Everyone should decide for themselves unless they decide things that aren't what we want. And this is the endless problem with trying to have a union or any form of federalization. Like when you have multiple layers of government, if the layers of government decide this layer of government can't do things, you get into problems. The whole reason Nevada exists is because federally gambling wasn't actually illegal. It just all the states individually did it. In the same way, any state can choose to lower their drinking age. They just lose out on highway funding, and they haven't. And you know, that's the actual reason. Like they have to kind of have the stick there with the carrot because there is a huge opportunity in monetizing any amount of sovereignty. The whole point of this video is to talk about the fact that, like, hey, you can zoom into any Nevada town and you're going to find a casino, right? Or statistically, only some of the times, apparently. Look, the Sundance Casino. You can zoom into any town, you can find a casino, and this is because they have way more than their fair share because of the fact that every other state says no, and they say yes, and therefore they attract people from those states. Man, this is actually a pretty rough-looking casino. You know, actually, one thing I want to do, like, every time I look at one of these, I look at it and I go, you know, I would love to go to one of these random towns, one of these, like, because everyone goes to Vegas, right, and that's their thing. There's actually, fun fact, by the way, Las Vegas is actually, like, a lot of different places. Like, there is the Paradise, which is obviously the unincorporated area that includes the casinos. There's Las Vegas, which is the majority of that. But then also on top of that, there's, like, the Las Vegas area, the Valley, as you kind of call it, which includes a place called North Las Vegas. It's a very confusing mess of an area to dive into. But if you live in the Las Vegas and or Reno metropolitan area, and you don't want to murder a British tourist when things are open, let me know, because one of the things that fascinates me so much is how an entire state has built around this one kind of concept. How an entire state can have a demography that looks like this. Because, you know, I like cities, and I like that so many people live in this one place over there. This is where green screen is not a good thing. This one particular reason. But yeah, I'm interested. Maybe you are too. Also, just as a fun fact, while we're here anyway, so send me an email, ibx2cat@gmail.com. I reserve the right not to reply until whenever America is open. But one of the interesting things here is if you look at the 1864 presidential election, the first one that Nevada could vote in, you could see how their state borders look different then, because even though you can see like all the states and roughly where they were going to be, the way it got like apportioned was very different. Like look at this mess right here, South Dakota, North Dakota, and like, what state even is that? I generally can't tell you. Like, not Colorado, maybe it's Colorado? What state? You know, let's look at a map right now. What state is that? Wyoming. The free states were just like kind of submerged in one thing, even though they had a higher population than Nevada at the time. You know, things are very interesting when it comes to America and how they decided to make states. Maybe you know that, maybe you don't. Maybe you know that California's population. Look, Nevada literally gave 2 electoral votes, the lowest in any state in history, until it looks like the District of Columbia in 2000 or the 1820 election of Mississippi. Basically, it's a wacky thing that they got 2 votes. 2 votes, damn it, 2 votes. It's weird stuff, isn't it? Maybe it's not weird stuff. Maybe what's weird stuff is the fact that it's been 15 minutes and I haven't said thank you for watching this video. I really could spend all day just diving into random... Like, this is a thing that, like, prior to 20 years ago, if you wanted to dive into just to, like, look into, like... We've gone to Winnemucca, actually. If you wanted to look at, like, some random town... This place is called Lovelock. And see what was going on, it would be, you know, like, it would be a... you'd have to drive there. You'd have to physically look at it. And now you can literally see exactly what it's like, sometimes in the worst quality street view I've ever seen. But you can look out the window and you can see these weird, kind of rough looking towns, right? And you can just see, around pretty much an entire state, because the entire state is nature and casinos, it seems. With not much really in between. Look at this town of Cherry Creek. Oh, it looks like there's nothing in Cherry Creek that is commercial. Or at least on Google Maps. That's very interesting, actually. Are there houses? Are there just a lot of people living in an area? With okay, there's no one living there, that's why. That makes a lot more sense now. That makes a lot more sense. But, yeah, I love doing this. I could do this all day. And if you live in Nevada, let me know. I'm very curious, like, mostly about, like, hey, what's the deal with your state? Tell me about why you moved there. Or if somehow you're one of those rare people who was born in Nevada. Because there is no state that is on the same level of Nevada in terms of, like, if you live there, you are not from there. If you look around, like, okay, so I don't know how well license plates can show, but when you go to Las Vegas, I had an Uber driver point it out, and then I couldn't stop seeing it. It's like, when you see a California plate, you know, watch out for the driving. And then I looked, and I was like, every, like, 3rd plate is a California plate, because the whole state exists, basically, on this little technicality that, like, hey, something's not legal in California, but there's enough Californians that if even 2% of them come to Nevada in the average course of a year, we can make an entire state on that. And obviously that's not the only source of income, but the fact that that's a huge portion of Las Vegas' success, it's interesting to me. It's very interesting. Maybe it's not interesting to you. Maybe the fact that there's actually, like, 3 Las Vegases and they all have, like, different levels of casino attached to them is interesting to you too. Or maybe the only thing that you find interesting is me saying thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Prime rib for $5.99. If you're not interested in that, then you shouldn't go to the Silver Nugget, clearly. But no, thank you for watching. Second channel. Don't care. Goodbye.